What's going on, everybody? It's your main man, 360 the Poet from the Morning Wood, and I'm here to talk to you about the Sci-Fi Center. It's your Vegas home for science fiction, horror, and fantasy. From comic books, toys, and posters to movie screenings and live events, they've got you covered. Located at 900 Cameron Avenue, Suite B209, give them a call, 702-900-4335, or reach them at thescificenter.com.
Hey, what's up?
All your favorite artists.
Check it out.
Say my name.
DJ Khaled.
This is Mila J.
Bruno Mars.
On Hot 7025fm.com.
It's your main man, 360 the Poet from the Morning Wood. And are you looking for the perfect drink? Well, you found it. Mimosa Royale is the perfect combination of California sparkling white wine and natural juice that is both tasty and refreshing. No artificial colors or flavors, no sugar added, and it's gluten-free. As the world's first ready-to-drink mimosa, Mimosa Royale is perfect for any occasion, day or night. You no longer have to drink 12 of those seltzers just to get that perfect buzz. At 8% alcohol, Mimosa Royale is the perfect drink to party with. Offered in a variety of flavors and sizes, you are bound to find a Mimosa Royale that you'll love. We have berry, mango, apple, and orange, with more flavors to come. Mimosa Royale is the most award-winning flavored wine that serves in bottles or cans. You can find them online at drinkmimosa.com or find them at your local liquor store. Ask for it by name. Mimosa Royale. There it is. Hey, I can hear myself and I can see myself. I can hear me, I can see me, and all those good things. Can y'all hear me? Can y'all see me out there in the world of radio and internet? It's your main man, your boy, 360 the Poet, and I'm back, baby. I'm back. I bounced back like a pot of fresh cooked crack. Means I came back with more than I went in there with. For those who don't understand the recognition of what I'm talking about around these parts. So I'm going to slide on around this thing and that little thing just like that. We're going to maneuver around. I just want to give y'all time to kind of warm up yourself. Make sure you in the building, because I'm in the building right now. That's a little too loud for me in my ears. Let me turn that down just a little bit. I'm going to pull that off one at a time. But we'll be able to make it happen. But what's up, y'all? What we doing? How y'all doing? Where y'all doing? Where y'all at? Where y'all at and what y'all doing and what y'all doing, where y'all at in this building. So we doing this thing right here live and direct every Wednesday as always. It's hump day, so it's time to holla at the homie, baby. You know what we do. The number one advice column online, in person, or all over the internet. However you want to do it. However you want to get the advice from me, all you got to do is tune in and tap in, you know? When you tune in and tap in with the homie, then you get a chance to figure out what's going on in your life, what's going on in somebody else's life. But I tell everybody, I'm a firm believer in letting people know, give y'all my disclaimer. I never went to school for any type of psychology. I did take psychology as an undergraduate course, but I never specified and specialized and focused on psychology, psychiatry, counseling of any sort. But what I have done, what's going on, JJ? What I have done is I've lived a life that's been colorful. Engineers popping in the screen. A life that's been colorful, you know, and vicariously I've been able to live through other people's lives as well and sponge some of that game up and drop it right back off to y'all right out here over the airwaves, right? So people send me in letters, people send emails, send me texts, they call me up on the phone, leave me voicemails, all kind of stuff, right? And what they do is they ask me questions. They go to, holla at the homie at gmail.com, and they shoot me questions. And all I do is I come on here. I never tell you what to do. I just give you options of what can be done, right? That's my whole purpose in this platform, to make sure I just give you options of what can be done so you don't feel like you stuck in one position trying to make one thing happen for yourself, right? So as I get my life together over here, adjusting my mouse pads and everything like that, then I'm just going to be able to talk to y'all a little bit more about how we do what we do up here, right? So I always take in information from what I like to call the peanut gallery, the people who tune in and tap in with me. They help me out with these situations as well. I'm always thankful for all of those people, right? I'm always thankful for the people that send in the letters, who actually take out the time to seek out the advice of the homie and the homie's homies. You know what I mean? That's what we're going to call it, the homie and the homie's homies. Now, if that was the name of our group, we'd be the homies. You know, we just call it like that, right? But I think it's already a clothing line or something like that. It's called The Homie. So I don't want to try to, no copyright infringement. I'm not trying to step on nobody's toes. Not trying to get turned WWE'd from WWF or anything like that, because I am The Homie, THAHOMIE @gmail.com. But anyway, back to what it is. So we got a letter from a wonderful listener, or an amazing viewer, a wonderful listener. That's what I want to call them, because I've seen them on this platform a number of times, and now they've decided to extend their questions to me as well. So I'm gonna treat this, act like I'm not blind in one eye and can't see out the other. Put my readers on to make sure I can get this understood for y'all out here. And the letter goes as follows: Dear Holla at the Homie, I find myself grappling with the dilemma I hope you can shed some light on. It pertains to the dynamics with my family and how I allow them to treat me. You see, I've noticed that I may tolerate behavior from my family members that I wouldn't accept from anyone else. For instance, my brothers sometimes speak to me in a manner that I wouldn't tolerate from a stranger on the street. It makes me wonder if I'm allowing this because of our familial relationship. Similarly, I've noticed that I might give too much leniency to other family members when it comes to the respect that they show me, simply because we share the same blood bond. It's as though I'm more forgiving of their actions and their attitudes because we have family ties. I'm struggling to discern whether these behaviors are acceptable with the context of family dynamics, or if I'm simply allowing myself to be treated poorly because of our relationship. How can I evaluate whether I'm setting appropriate boundaries and expecting the respect I deserve from my family members? Your insights would be greatly appreciated. Sincerely, in need of clarity. So, in need of clarity. We do need some clarity. We need some clarity. What's going on, Kedrick Bateman? KB in the building. My dancing Aquarius. But yes, sometimes that's a good question. Let's start with that. That's a good question, because we all need to evaluate from time to time whether or not the relationships and how we're handling them are based upon how we feel about a certain person, right? So that's, first I want to commend you for taking the time to recognize that you're having trouble and you're grappling with that. What's going on, Big Lou? You know what I mean? I reckon it's wonderful that you recognize and that you're grappling with that. Acknowledging something like that is like, especially when it's in your closest relationships. Because you may mention to how you said you allow your brother to speak to you in ways that you wouldn't let a stranger on the street talk to you. So this is what I'm saying. Like, the closeness in these relationships is an intimate, connection between you and your family members. Like, you share something, a different bond than you would share with anyone else. You also said you give leniency to other family members when it comes to the respect that they show you. Meaning not the respect that they say that they have for you. Because people get away with saying that, like, I got love for you, or I love you. I don't know you love me if you don't show me. What's up, Cool Millio in the building? You know what I mean? So you have to show these things, and people need to show you that they respect you. So don't think that that you're crazy because you're feeling a little less than the respect that you feel you deserve. Because these are things of feelings. These are dealing with things that you internalize. Meaning, if you don't feel as if though you're getting this love from somebody, then they don't love you in your eyes. Your perspective is the truth to you. The truth is based off the perspective of the person who's taking it in, right? So now, like, you feeling the unlove, or you feeling disrespected by these family members because you feel like as if they're not giving you what you deserve, what you feel you deserve, right? So again, we're dealing with those feelings. So, and it sounds like you're questioning whether you're setting the appropriate boundaries. That's the word we're going to kind of focus a little bit on. I even underlined it right here on my paper, right? You focusing on, are you setting the appropriate boundaries? And what I mean by that is, like, are you expecting the respect you deserve from your family members? Or is this something that you've established with them how to receive this respect? Because if you've not established with them on how you want to receive it, or what love language or what respect language that you're speaking, then you haven't set the proper boundaries. Let's start there. You have to be able to put up your walls or your maze, or if you want people to move a certain way in your life, you got to put up the cattle run. You got to be the one to put up the stanchions to show them which direction to go. Stanchions come in form of a conversation. Stanchions come in form of different situations when you're in person with one another and they see how you move. Or, they've watched, and lived vicariously, that's my word for today, lived vicariously through you and appreciated how you've moved. So those are the stanchions that you're able to put up in your life for people. What's up, Dakarai? I got one click on one side, one click on the other side. That's what I'm talking about. Who you with? But these are the things that people should feel comfortable by putting up, like setting your boundaries. If you can't set your boundaries, then it's a couple reasons behind that. One, the number one reason is you're not even comfortable with your boundaries. Because every kid knows how to build a fort. You know how to build a fort from a child, meaning you know how to put up walls since you've been a child, the ones that you've been comfortable with. You use a book to hold a sheet up on the top of the dresser, and then use like a backpack to hold the other part of the sheet on the couch. You know what I mean? It's all these things you feel comfortable putting those walls up. So you've known how to put up walls since you were a child. But if you're not putting up the boundaries with the people with whom you love the most, then it's one thing. You're not comfortable with that boundary. You're not comfortable with that wall. So now, in order to get comfortable with that wall, you need to familiarize yourself with, why do I have this wall up? What is it about this wall that's protecting me? What is it about this wall that I need, that is a necessity for me? If you're not comfortable with putting up that, as a carpenter, if a carpenter go to put up some drywall and he put a hole in it, or he doesn't feel like it's sturdy, or he feel like there's something wrong with it, then he's not comfortable putting up that boundary. So you got to be the carpenter of your relationships. Are you comfortable putting up that wall? And to set boundaries is one thing, but to enforce them is another. Look at the Great Wall of China. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's different than the Berlin Wall. Both put up for similar reasons, but one of them came down. One is still up, but just changed the reason for its existence. You understand what I'm saying? So now, what walls are you comfortable? What boundaries are you comfortable? What's going on, MVP? What boundaries are you comfortable with putting up? Once you have those established, now you got to be able to find a way to show the people what these boundaries are. That's how you develop. Boundaries are crucial in healthy relationships. You know what they say, the best neighbors are made by good fences, or something along this old proverb, like good fences make great neighbors, or something like that. That's because it allows you to have a boundary between someone who you actually connect with. Someone who you're connected to. In apartments, you got thin walls sometimes, but sometimes people respect those boundaries and don't make all the noise because they understand what it sounds like coming from the other way. So maybe you're not comfortable putting those boundaries up in need of clarity because you haven't experienced, or they haven't experienced, what it's like coming from the other direction. They haven't received the lack of respect or the lack of care of how they've been spoken to in their direction, but you have. And you're not comfortable with that. Or either that, or maybe they have received it and they're cool with it. They're okay with that, with those levels of respect or disrespect or lack thereof or more thereof. It's just, unless you can kind of sit down and be ready to have that open conversation with them. I'm always talking about communication. Communication is always my number one thing. That's what I went to school for, so I'm going to tell you all about it. And when communication comes about, the most important part of a conversation is what you listen to. Not what you got to say. The most important part of the conversation, the most important part of the conversation to each individual is what they listened to, not what they heard. what you listen to. And so you got to get your family members, your brothers, and tell them, like, because, if you're young, because this was ambiguous in the mug. I'm not going to give away your sex because I think you asked me not to tell whether you're a man or a woman, because you said it in your email that you wanted objective responses, So if your brothers are talking to you that way, and it's a way that, as a man, you ask your brother, like, hey, man, I kill people in the streets for talking to me like this, other men in the streets for talking to me like this. Or, you would kill another man in the street for talking to me like this. Why you talking to me like that, bro? And vice versa. If you're a woman and you tell your brothers, like, man, well, if somebody talked to me like this and you heard them talking to me like this, would that be okay with you as my brother? Ask these things, have these open conversations, because again, the most important part of a conversation is what each member listened to. And if you can get them to listen to you by relating to them and helping them understand where you feel as if this is going awry and it's an uncomfortable place to be for you, then maybe they'll listen to that more by giving them an example where it relates to them. Because you specified here, you said, Mr. or Miss in need of clarity. My brothers sometimes speak to me in a manner that I wouldn't tolerate a stranger on the street. And it makes me wonder if I'm allowing this because of our relationship. And then you turn around and say, and you've also noticed that you give too much leniency to other family members. So are you dishing out bread and they not paying you back? What's going on, Ms. Contreras? What's going on the other side of the family as far as leniency? Is it somebody that's not, holding up their word and you just letting them slide? Where is the leniency? And if that's the case, now you got to find a way to communicate with that person openly and have that conversation, that two-way street, and get them to listen. And not only get them to listen, you got to be willing to listen. Because clarity comes from listening. Your tag name on here is in need of clarity. Clarity only comes from listening. Clarity in music, you listen to that. Ooh, you listen to the clarity. You don't just hear it. When a song is crisp and clear, ask somebody, say, you hear that? Somebody gonna say, listen to that. Because there's a difference between listening and hearing. So if you're trying to find clarity, you got to be willing to listen to why it's not as clear on the other side of the glass. They may think that they talking to you, as a dude to toughen you up, or as a woman to toughen you up. Your brothers may think that. But if it's not a comfortable place for you and you haven't expressed that to them, then you haven't given them a chance to listen. What'd you say, Lou? You say family feels more entitled than friends to disrespect you a lot of the times. And I found that they don't respect boundaries because they don't see you as anything other than a family member. And that is completely understandable and a valid point. And that is a valid point. And that's where we're trying to exercise to try to normalize the opposite of that, to where family looks at you more as like, let me dissect what my family member is going through and not just chalk it up to them being who they are. Because in this listening that I'm telling in need of clarity to do, they may hear, maybe they be able to listen to when they brothers say, like, I say that to you because I want to get it off my chest to you, because if I take it out into the world, it may end in gunfire. So it's a chance to find out why we talk to each other this way, why this doesn't feel good to be spoken to this way. Would you say, Dakari, in the words of Al Capone, you can't get much further with a kind word. You can get much further with a kind word and a gun than you can with just a kind word alone. And that's true too. You can get a lot of places where hey man, I'm gonna ask you nicely why I got this pistol, and that is an Al Capone statement. But look where he end up, dead in the mud. No, I'm just talking smack. But, these are the chances to kind of listen to why people may be doing the things that they're doing. Your family members who who you allow this leniency to that aren't giving you back the respect that you feel you deserve, they may think that they going above and beyond. It's just they don't have the words to express it, or they've never been expressed to them that wasn't fitting the bill, or that was making you feel disrespected. So these open, honest conversations have to be able to be had. It's not about confrontation. It's about being able to come to the table with those who you break bread with, who you care about, who you love. And do it comfortably. And do it as a family. You know, and in that instance, you strengthen your familial bond. Because you've gained the respect of each other by sitting down and not only having the guts to talk to someone, but also having the respect to absorb what they have to say in return and listening to them. Because I promise you, when you listen to the words people say and not just hear the words coming out of their mouth, the conversation is taken to a whole nother level. And it's absorbed at a deeper level. It's not just a surface, conversation. You've been communicating when you listening and they listening. And allowing each other to get all out what they need to get out. You never know why these people may be sitting there like, going off on you. What's going on, Hella Adrian? You never know why these people may be, saying these things to you, because they may not have anywhere else to have that outlet. They don't have anywhere else to get that off their chest. And if they say it to you, they may feel it's a safer space, and hopefully you don't take it that way because you know how they are. But even in that, like I always say, this is my thing. If people say, well, that's just such and such, that's just such and such, and the things that just such and such is doing, I don't like, then that means I don't like such and such. So I don't want to chalk my family members up as being just who they are. Let's talk about why it is what it is that rubs each other the wrong way. That doesn't make me feel like family, like I feel family should feel like you feel family should feel like. Because it's not always going to match and be the same thing. So my understanding of what it is, what love is, and what respect is may be different than yours. But if I understand what yours is, gives me the opportunity to make sure that the mirror in front of you shows you that this love is what is happening. So I'm going to meet you a little bit closer to you. I'm not just going to give you that funhouse mirror from way over here. I'm going to bring it a little bit closer to you so you can get the clarity that you're looking for. What else I got in my notes over here? So it's like sometimes you got to be able and willing to receive your chin check. Thank you very much. You have to be willing to receive your chin check to know if you got a glass jaw or not, or to know if your sparring partners are worthy of your skills, or if one of y'all need to get your skills up. You can't just go in there sparring with, one of my favorite video games of all times is Mike Tyson Punch-Out, right? Mike Tyson Punch-Out. And I learned, even though, they found out the code 00737355963. You do that right now, Mike Tyson Punch-Out, you go straight to Mike Tyson. But I found out quickly I needed to go through the rankings if I was ever going to beat Mike Tyson. Meaning I had to get my sparring up. So same thing goes in your relationships with your family. Can you get all the way up to where you need to be till you knock out the heavier issues by sparring, going through the ranks with the other ones that are more on the surface, or the ones that are more tangible to you? That's the thing. How tangible is the result? That plays in a lot of our heads. Can I really reach what I'm seeking? Can I actually attain what it is I'm trying to get out of my brother, or out of my family members, or out of whomever it is that I may be having any shortcomings as far as family and connection with, or relationship imbalance with, right? Because again, to recap, I said earlier, the best part of any conversation are the parts that each party listened to. So how much of this conversation am I taking with me as well as they taking with them? You know? Family dynamics they can blur the lines between acceptable and unacceptable behavior because it's family. So the lines are hella blurred. What'd you say? Boundaries bring resentments, though. Mike Tyson punch out tells y'all age. Yeah, it does. I mean, boundaries, I believe boundaries bring resentment only if they're put up without understanding of why they're there. Dr. Danica, I think boundaries bring up resentment only if they're put up without both parties understanding why the boundaries are being put up. The Berlin Wall, for instance, right? Like, they didn't tell the other side they were putting this wall up. And when they started to tell it, it was like, because we want to keep y'all out. No explanation other than that. Not saying because we feel like we can operate better independently, any of that kind of stuff. So, like, when you put up the boundaries with your family members, per se, you got to let them know, like, I'm not doing this because, you know, I'm trying to push you away. No, I'm doing this because I want to make sure when we're around each other that all the energy is in the areas and concentrated where it needs to be. Like if you ever had an exterminator come bomb your house, you know, they have you open up cabinets, you know, and so that you got to open up the cabinets in these conversations so they can seep into all the cracks and crevices. You got to be open if you really gonna drop that bomb on this family dynamic, right? So when that's said, like, you got to let your family members know now when we close these cabinets off, I'm not closing you off. I'm just closing off the parts of this that no longer pertain to day to day. When we open that cabinet, we going into that place, but that boundary set up to where it's not always exposed. Boundaries, represent, help you prevent overexposure. When you put up a boundary with somebody, that means you're not exposed to them as much. Or if you put up a boundary with somebody's ways, you're not exposed to those ways as much. So boundaries aren't saying like you're no longer dealing with these things. It's just saying they're not in your face at all times. You know they there because you put the boundary up. So you know it's there. You're not hiding from it. It's just out of sight, out of mind. That way I can focus my energy on being better in concentrated areas where I am. I can let my light shine where I am. The light can shine back on me. Would you say, Ray Butler, boundaries are protecting your peace and keeps you in a safe place? And they do. They do keep you in a safe place, but I don't want people to feel like when you put up boundaries that you're boxing yourself in. No, you're not boxing yourself in unless you put up the boundary so close to you to where only you benefit from the boundary. You see what I'm saying? To where it's only on your space. No, then that means they're creating the boundary. You're just putting up a wall. If you put the boundary right in the middle, halfway in between the two of y'all, then it's an understanding like this is the property line based on this instance. What'd you say? Love the convo, my brother. Thank you, Big Lou. Appreciate it, man. Like when you put up boundaries, you got to make sure it's established. Like this is like the state line. When you're on the state line of California and Nevada, your phone will even tell you are entering into Nevada. You are entering into California because there was a imaginary boundary set there, but both places know about it. Everybody's aware of the boundaries, so it's no beef involved in the boundaries. It's not closing anybody out. It's just identifying where we separate in this issue. We got different ways of doing this, so it's nothing against you. California, you the Golden State. Oh, Nevada, you the Silver State. Booyah, let's all get money. So it's no beef. It's just there's a boundary, and we know about it. So if you communicate these boundaries with the people with whom you have them, then knowing about it will help to prevent it from being tense. Knowing about the boundaries will help them from being somebody thinking you secluding them. No, you just letting them know like, hey, we great. until we get to here, and this is where we start to look at things differently. So to prevent us from bumping into each other, we know that we hit this wall and go another direction. What's up, Pammy Ammy? You know, that's the thing. When you get to the boundary, you know it's time to change direction and continue to go your way, and they can continue to go theirs, and there's no friction, there's no beef, there's no head-on collision when you set those boundaries. That's an excellent point, Ray Butler. Ray Butler said boundaries will solve problems before it becomes a problem. And that will, because people understand, like, hey, this is where we stop. This is my stop. This is where I get off. This is where I get off of this particular bus. Bing! Hit the button. Ching! Pull the cord, whatever it is. I remember in the RTD, they used to have that little long cord. You had to pull that thing. Ching! It'll ring up front. Stop requested. That's a boundary. It's a stop requested. I want to stop us from going any further in this particular category. You know, even with boundaries, you go around the corner of a boundary, it's the wall, you to the next subject. That's the next category. You may be no boundaries on the next category, but this particular one, we got a stopping point. A stop has been requested. And if it's understood by everybody, the driver of the bus, that's a good analogy right there. Putting up boundaries is like requesting your stop on the bus. The bus driver being the person with whom you want the boundary with, whom you want to get some separation from in this particular ride. So you pull that cord, boom, you put up your boundary because now you have made a stop has been requested. That's a boundary. I don't want to go past Slauson. I don't. Because if I go past Slauson on this bus, it's different people on the other side. What up, Ken? It's different people on the other side, you know, well, when I go past this particular stop. So that's the boundary within I want to stop at, right? So you have to be willing to pull your stop requested cord with your family members, with your coworkers, you know, with anybody with whom you want to put that boundary up, you know? You got to remember, it's essential that from family member to family member, respect is felt. What's going on? Oh, KKK. Respect has to be felt. Respect has to be gained, you know, but it also has to be reciprocated. That's one thing that it'll run out real fast if it's only coming from one side, right? So if in this conversation with your family members, we beyond talking about your brothers now, right? You said your brothers talk to you crazy, you know, talk to you a way in which nobody would let nobody talk to you in the streets, right? But then you say you got some family members who you show leniency with that don't give you the respect back that you feel you deserve. So now, you know what I mean? So now you got to look at it like this. With those family members, are you giving them the respect? Are you giving them the space to not respect you? That's the thing. Like, you can only get back what you give out, right? It's like karma. It's a boomerang. You get back what you give out. Respect it's got to be reciprocated or else it runs out, right? But if you're not giving them the tools to understand how you need to feel respected, you haven't, stop requested that boundary of disrespect, then you in a whole nother ball game, right? You got to be able to communicate that with those family members as well. You know, you got to let people know, like, look, man, like, I don't like this because I wouldn't do this. So that in my eyes is this. You know, so, and people may not understand it. They really may not have a clue what you got going on in your head until you converse. You got to be willing to not only talk what you got to talk about, but listen and hear what they got to talk about. Man, I told you all day long, I repeat this same line. The best part of any conversation are the pieces that both parties listen to. Not what they heard, what you absorbed and what you listened to. What's going on, Quinn Morris? But you know what I mean? So it's like, These are the things you got to understand. When you're dealing with family or you're dealing with people who you respect and you want to make sure they respect you too, and you want to create these boundaries, you want to find a way to build these boundaries without building friction, let it be known. Help people understand the boundary is to prevent the friction. Like Ray Butler said, boundaries will solve problems before it becomes a problem. If you communicate with it. And the only boundaries I say that aren't good ones, well, I'll never say aren't good ones, that aren't received well, are the ones that aren't communicated. You got to be able to communicate the other boundaries out there, you know? And if you don't want to talk about them, then you not comfortable with what the boundary is. So you yourself need to be comfortable with the tools and materials in which you're going to build this wall with before you can communicate it to somebody else. Yeah, setting boundaries does develop strong relationships, especially friendships. You got to set boundaries with your friends because people play too damn much. People play too much. So you got to be able to set boundaries with the people who you rock with because sometimes you're the one that's playing. So you got to be able to establish like what we not doing. It was funny. I was just listening to the old I think it was Drink Champs. They had Bill Bellamy on there, and he was talking about the fight between LL and Jamie Foxx. And you know, because Bill Bellamy said, you know, LL, he play around till he don't play around. You know, and he was trying to warn Jamie like, hey man, he not the dude to, you know, I know L, we know each other from the crib, like he not the one to be playing around with, you know, but comedians and rappers, they just don't mix with all the time, right? So again, those boundaries were set, but they weren't fully communicated. So you got to be like, you know, if you're going to be playing around and you don't feel like playing no more, you got to let people know and understand, like, it's going to come a point sometime in here, I'm going to be through playing. And when I hit that button, I'm going to need you to be through playing too. Like, let's establish this before I even start playing. If not, don't even play. Don't play. You have to be able to communicate your boundaries clearly. You know? Giving too much leniency to some people just because it's a blood bond. Sometimes what the main thing that does, yeah, you may feel like it's making it easier on the relationship, but it's actually going to develop some sort of resentment and a little imbalance in the relationship. Because there's going to be other people who may see, you may go harder in the paint on, and they say, like, well, dang, you ain't say nothing to Junie now. You let Junie and her sister talk, you know, they tell you all kind of stuff, mislead you, leave you hanging at the club. You don't say nothing to them. I forget to pick up the mail out the mailbox one time, and I'm called everything but a child of God. You know, so it will create resentment in relationships by allowing too much leniency. It'll create imbalance in relationships by allowing too much leniency, because just because you allow that to them don't mean they're going to turn around and allow you the same, you know, space to act the fool towards them in their direction. And then now y'all got beef. You know? Why though? Because none of it was communicated. Nobody talked about it. Nobody said, hey, let me what Pimp C say? Let me set this shit straight. Let me lay down the rules, you know? Let's set it straight from the beginning. I need to know what we doing, how we doing it, and how far we going with it before we even take this ride. Especially depending on how far along in y'all relationship in the world y'all are. If y'all been family members and y'all 30s, 40s years old, like, this is well overdue conversations. It is, and people are like, well, nothing gonna change now. It's only not going to change if nobody addresses it. One thing, the best apologies to anything is learned and changed behavior. You know? That's the best thing. Like, the best apology is changed behavior. Learned and changed behavior. So if you feel like you've been wronged in something, you got to allow people to understand how they can learn from not treating you that way, but you got to speak up. That's what I want everybody to empower within themselves, the inner voice to speak up. You know, like I got a poem. It start off like, I know it may be hard to imagine, but I actually bite my tongue a lot. I may speak with power and passion, but confrontational, I am not. And I get that with other people, right? I understand if you're not confrontational, because I'm not. I'm a non-confrontational type person. I'd rather sit back, see how it's going to unfold, and until it gets to the point to where something has to be said, I'm going to move accordingly to prevent myself from having to go bananas. Because I know once my switch is flipped, like I don't have a yellow light. You understand what I'm saying? I'm either sitting there and I'm chilling, I'm stopped, or it's green light, full speed ahead, go. There is no yellow light for me to slow down, stop, chill, relax. No, I don't have one. I do not possess one in my spirit. I don't even want one. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm going to observe. So that's why I'm so non-confrontational. Now, don't get me wrong. When the dog is off the chain, it's a whole nother story. But it has to go there. But by being non-confrontational, what I'm saying, that to bring this back to our conversation, is in being that way, I have neglected to have those conversations at times. Would you say, Ray Butler, if you're not changing, you're not moving and growing? This is true. It's like a flower, like blades of grass. Like, you got to grow every day. Even weeds grow every day. You know? So, like, I had to start to learn to inject a lot of these, what some would think would be confrontational conversations in. What's up, Bubbling Brown Sugar? I had to learn how to incorporate these confrontational conversations in without being, without having friction. Because that's where things go awry. Like if I'm smooth, I don't like friction. I don't. So anybody that is smooth and you cause friction in their world, that means you done shattered something. Think about that. If you cause friction in what used to be a smooth circumstance, you've essentially shattered something. So that means now it's going to take a lot to put it back together. It's pieces that you hope don't fall out. So now they're going to lose it, meaning they're going to lose it at that point. And it's going to be glass everywhere, porcelain everywhere, because you've shattered them when you could have just leaned on them, possibly cracked something because you got a little too heavy for them, but it's fixable at that point. Oh, that's a good point there, Ray Butler. And be okay with everyone not accepting your boundaries. But I'm not even going to say be okay with them not accepting your boundaries. I'm going to say be okay with them not understanding your boundaries. Because one thing you're going to do is either you're going to accept my boundaries or you ain't going to have me. If we got boundaries and they're established and you continually try to cross them, what that does is mean either we got friction now and we squabbing, or out of maneuvered and now you no longer have access to me. You no longer involved with me. You no longer in my life. If you don't accept my boundaries. Now, you may not be, you may be like, well, I don't know about all of it. Can we compromise some of it? Because, again, that's what that conversation's about. Because some of what I may be trying to get rid of may be something that's necessity for you to continue to operate within these parameters. That may be the thing. People may be, missing the point that some of the antics that they're doing are survival tactics for them to stay with you involved in this situation. But I bet if y'all communicated, if y'all sat down and conversed, you talk to them, they listen. They talk to you, you listen. Then you'll probably come together like armpits and meet in the middle somewhere. And that's when you got a cohesive relationship, one that's bendable. And again, I'm not talking about only romantic relationships. I mean business partnerships. I mean friendships. I mean sibling relationships. Parental. You have to set boundaries in all of them, understand the boundaries in all of them, be willing to stand on the boundaries in all of them, but most importantly, communicate the boundaries in all of them. If you building a wall, you building these boundaries, but you can't even communicate the blueprint, then how do people understand what they are? If they walk it in, that may be just a sliding door. They don't know what that is, so they trying to find a way to slide the door, and it's a wall. You say active listening is a big key to communication. Oh, definitely. You have to be willing to listen and absorb and be okay with what the other person is saying. Because in essence, if you think about it, you want them to be okay with what you're saying. So you have to be willing to be okay with what they're getting off of their chest as well. It's totally fine to be able to say, hey, I understand that. I may not receive what you think is attached to it, but I understand more why you're coming from that way because you've helped me, dissect how you feel in this situation. But doing that, you have to be an active listener. You can't just go in with your blueprint like, this is my game plan, this is going to work, I've got it all down. Nah, that's why there's an offense and a defense. Both coaches got offensive game plans. Both coaches have defensive schematics. But it's really up to those involved to see how those are going to work either hand in hand or against each other. Because if you're not communicating with one another, both your offenses on the field at the same time, and you're both trying to score, nobody's going to. Or both your defenses on the field at the same time, and you both sitting back like, or. Nobody's going to absorb anything because nobody's going to be on the assertive side to try to say, hey, let's go. This is where I'm at with it. Ready, down, set. Can you snatch me up? What's up, Miss Love Doctor? These are the things that you have to ask yourself when dealing with relationships and the level of respect received or the power of the words that are given and delivered between the two of you or between the parties involved in this relationship. Like as Mr. and Miss in need of clarity said, started off saying like their brother talked to them in ways that they wouldn't let a stranger in the street talk to them. So I recapped and said, well, that's the communication style you need to have with your brother and say, hey, regardless what your gender is, like, what if you heard somebody else saying that stuff to me or behind my back to me in the streets? What would your reaction be? And see what they would say. It was like, exactly. So please, why would you do that to me for somebody else to overhear and think it's okay? If you communicate, I'm always a firm believer in it's never the message. It's never 100% the message on whether or not people get it. It's delivery of said message. I think delivery is 70% of the whole reception of everything. The last 30% is being able to absorb what it is that they're giving. You know what I mean? Like, you have to be able to deliver the message. And by doing that, you have to be open enough to communicate, to be able to receive what they have to say too. How is that possible for you to be able to do those two things? But easy. By simply be willing to communicate. That's at the bottom. That's the sum. That's the dirt. That's the clay pellets. That's the that's the hydroponic system. That's how things grow rapidly and consistently. Communication is your fertilizer. Talking is the shit. Think about that. The only way anything grows is from its foundation, which is communication. Communication is your fertilizer, it's your hydro, it's your pellets, it's your soil. It's the only place from which anything can grow. But you have to be willing to plow the field. You have to be willing to sow the seeds, and that's being able to listen and talk to each other actively. not looking to just respond off something they said. Take it all in. You may miss something by being like that double dutch. When you gonna double dutch? When is my turn? When's it my turn to talk? When's it my turn to talk? No, if y'all may be both on the ends and having a cool little conversation and singing Miss Mary Mac Mac Mac, all dressed in black 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 with silver buttons all down her back. You know what I mean? You never know how your communication starts, but it has to start with both parties being willing to be in it and receptive to it. So, Mr. and Miss Anita Clarity, you asked, how can you evaluate whether you setting appropriate boundaries and expecting the respect you deserve from your family? There you have it. Are you communicating with them? Are you being honest with them? Are you listening to them? Are you giving examples of, what is cool and how you move? Are you just being an expectant person, or have you actually talked about what it is that bothers you, especially with a sibling? It's a little easier with a sibling, I believe, only because, if you can relate to your siblings, that is. I'm not going to say you can talk more to your sister or brother than you can to your cousins. I just said in my instances, I've found that it's easier for siblings to communicate because they can understand a little bit better because they got more of the same origin. Be like, come on, man, I know you may have heard that in the house, but neither one of us liked it, or, we never heard that in the house, so why would you think I like that? So these are the conversations that need to be had. Well, no matter who the other party is. Like I said, you say your brothers talk to you crazy. Address that to them. You can't be afraid to address that, regardless if your brother, crazy. He crazy. I don't like talking to him. He crazy. But that may be his way of expressing love, or that may be his way of getting things off his chest, and he feels like you're a safe outlet. Sometimes we are people's safe outlet, and with that, you have to be willing to be that outlet for them, how they need you to be that outlet, the same way you want them to be the way for you needing them to be. You don't need everybody to beat everybody up, but sometimes you need somebody just to listen to you. You may need somebody to come scoop you up. You may need somebody to come scare somebody. You need them to be that outlet. Would you say, Michelle and Daniel, you say acronym for love, we must rebound the message of love with effective communication. Love overcomes everything. All the boundary we needing is to discuss the dialogue and great conversation in love. I get that. You have to be able to, if you got love going on, then there's got to be some communication happening as well. Because if not, it's more like. It's deep like. If you're not communicating with somebody, at least to a little bit, something beyond the surface. You may just like them a lot, just based off what you've experienced for the moment. Because, I need that communication to be there. Well, I'm not saying for me. I can't tell nobody how to love. What up, Kip? Pete, man, in the building. So that's the thing. Like, you got to understand and set your boundaries from everybody who you feel like you care about. If you don't care about them, it's not setting a boundary. You're just kicking them out, building a wall between y'all. What's going on, Renee Hannah? So like if you care about somebody, then it's a boundary, but you got to communicate that with them. And that way they understand why that boundary's there, and that's how people know not to cross them. If you just put up boundaries, you just tell people, I don't like this and this and this and this, and they continue to go crossing your boundaries, is because they don't understand why you don't like it. So you got to dig deeper and communicate it. You can't just say it to where they can hear it. You got to tell it to them to where they can listen to you. I told y'all, my brother-in-law, Cece, told me, he gave me a great analogy about hearing and listening. You can hear somebody's music bumping down the street, but unless you in the car with them to listen, you don't know if it's the original or the remix. You can't hear, you don't know those lyrics. You got to be listening. It may be somebody's diss track that they put on somebody else's song. You don't know why. They'll be like, oh, that's that old such and such. No, that ain't that, dog. The people in the car can say that because they listening to it. So you have to listen to people. That's the main message. Listen to them when you're telling them and letting them know, and you have to implore to them, I need you to listen to me. Let's listen to each other because I want to fully express to you why this is uncomfortable for me, but I love you and I'm trying to keep it that way. Trying to keep it that way. You know? So, again, like I said, don't give too much leniency to your family members because that's in one way or another. Would you say respect each other to boundary and love? And that's exactly right. You know, like when you give it too much leniency, that's going to be able to cause some sort of like imbalance or resentment towards the relationship, you know. But you got to evaluate whether or not your respect that you're receiving is what you're giving out or what you are, you know, willing, you know, if you communicated what you're willing to allow people to give you. You know, while family connections are important and all of that kind of stuff, they shouldn't be used as an excuse for disrespectful behavior. You be like, oh man, you my brother, man. I'm just talking to you like that, or be like, oh no, you know, cousin, you know, we ain't mean no disrespect by it, but like, nah, but we need that to be understood. Like, don't use those like as an excuse, like for disrespectful behavior. The fact that we family, be like, oh, you know, I got you, little cousin. You know, I'm just messing with you, little cousin. When people try to throw these things on there, you got to help them understand, like, you know, if your little cousin, big cousin, whoever it is, I'm going to need this to not occur because it doesn't make me feel good about this whole situation and even more adversely about you. So, you know, with that being said, you know, always remember, y'all can always send in y'all messages right here to me on hollaatthehomie@gmail.com. That's HOLLAATTHAHOMIE@gmail.com. What you say? Be clear in your expressions and the other party will be clear on you. That's true. That's the truth. That's the truth. And I appreciate y'all until next week. I've been the homie. I'm a holla in a minute.